Go ahead.
From the beginning?
From the beginning.
Okay, your name, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Madhu Thibodeau.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Madhu.
So I am, I've lived in Maryland for about 20 years. I'm from West Virginia. Prior to needing dialysis, I worked as a substitute teacher in Howard County Public School Systems. I volunteered at Walter Reed, and I also helped in our local church with Catholic religious ed. So did a lot of different things in the community.
Fantastic. How long have you been on dialysis?
I've been on dialysis about on and off for about I'd say 2.5 years or so. I started with hemo dialysis and then ended up having a transplant. Well, actually, I had a transplant, then hemo, then transplant, then hemo, then PD. So it's been kind of a long road, but currently on PD right now.
And when you say hemo, was that chronic hemo at a dialysis center?
No, I actually, I started out with hemodialysis after my first transplant failed. I had a hemo in the hospital, and I needed to hook up with a local dialysis center. And my nephrologist actually recommended the facility that he works with, Home Dialysis of America. And truly, it was a godsend for me. It was... the transition from having to do something that I'd never done before, going to a place that they were very welcoming and very, very, very helpful and very family oriented to me on how to get through this. So I did hemo in Home Dialysis of America. So it wasn't a chronic center. It was basically I go there 3 times a week while I got trained, and then I eventually came home and did the hemodialysis at home.
And what was your diagnosis?
My diagnosis was polycystic kidney disease. So it's a genetic disorder that runs in my family. And my mom has had 2 transplants. She had gone on dialysis for maybe a year. She had done the chronic setting. And I was 14 when she was going through it. And it was just horrible to kind of watch her go through that. So... I knew at some point my turn would come and I would have to go through this, but I think a lot of things have changed in the last 20 years with the technology.
Yes. And you had some medical background in the family, I understand?
Yeah, so my dad's a physician, my brother's a physician, and I think just being kind of raised in that environment, and I actually have a background in science. I have a master's in secondary ed in biology, so I was going to actually teach and worked in the research industry. So once I got sick, you kind of are your best advocate. So you end up learning a lot about your situation and your organs, and you're the best person to take care of what you need to for yourself.
Did your father and brother have any impact in your go?
Wait a little bit longer before asking the next question.
Yes,
because you know what I mean.
For cutting. Okay. Did your brother and father have any? Give you any assistance in making the decision?
Yeah, my family was very involved since my dad had kind of had been the primary caregiver for my mom, and they're both still alive. So my dad, being a physician, knew what to do for my mom, and it was a learning process for all of us because my dad's an anesthesiologist, so this was an area that we didn't really have a lot of experience. But he definitely, it was comforting knowing that he had already been down this road, and he was able to guide me not only in the medicines but the treatment and kind of the follow-up and what I needed to do, as well as the kidney diet and what is the best mode of dialysis for me and what actually would be helpful. So they were very key in all of the surgeries that I've had and all the transplants that I've had.
Let me add one question there. What did he say anything about recommending home dialysis?
I think based on what him and my mom had gone through, he had recommended staying away from the in-center and doing, private dialysis just because it's more one-on-one and you have more individualized attention. And there are a couple situations even in the center that I was at. And again, it was me and 4 nurses. So it was very kind of a private setting, but there were instances where we did have some complications and it wasn't 20 other people in the room. It was just me and the nurses, and they were able to react very quickly and take care of my needs. And it was just it made it feel all the more personal, and it made it feel that I knew they were truly there for me, but the setting was less stressful because I didn't hear everybody else kind of going through their process, and everybody else, having different episodes happen to them, and 5 different nurses running around the room, it being crazy like that. It was just very, it was less stressful, and it was definitely calming. I think to have to go through this at all and then have a smaller setting definitely made a difference.
How did your family react to you saying that you were going to do this modality at home and bring these machines into the house?
I think they were very supportive. I think for them it was not something that was available to my mom, so I think for them at first, they had a lot of questions, but then realized how far technology had come. That 20 years prior, my mom had to go to this in-center and had to deal with waiting her turn, and if she missed a spot, like she couldn't reschedule it. So it's like if you were there, you were there, and if you missed it, you missed it. But the flexibility and just having something be in your house and work around you, and this be part of your life instead of dialysis being your life, it was really a game changer. I mean, I won't say that it wasn't hard going through all this, but I mean, I think the road that I went on between doing dialysis at Home Dialysis of America and doing it at home really, I think, changed my attitude on how to deal with this, and gave me the opportunity to have a normal life and be able to be with my kids and do everything that I wanted to do. And I know in center, I wouldn't have had that flexibility at all.
Tell me about your typical dialysis day.
So typically now, because I'm on PD, basically what I do is, and I actually just recently got a part-time job, so started working early this year, and it's about 30-40 hours a week. So I basically get up and I go to work, and I do a midday drain, which is about 20 minutes. So I try to work that in between 12 and 3, somewhere in the middle of the day. And then I go about my day, and then every night while I'm sleeping, I hook onto my machine, and while I'm asleep, it dialyzes me. So it's really, I have my whole day to myself, and I'm able to live a normal life. I don't have to stop. I don't have to do anything. I just live my normal life, and while I'm sleeping, the system clears through my body, and when I wake up in the morning, it's like a new day, and I just start off fresh. So again, it was an adjustment, but really it's actually been the best modality for me as far as being able to live such a normal life and be able to get back to work and do everything that I could do. I know that if I was in center, I'd be spending anywhere from 4 to 5 to 6 hours a day there, and that would be literally a part-time job, just being there at a facility, not knowing if I had to wait my turn and everything as well. So this definitely gave me my life back. It gave me my time back, and it gave me a lot of my energy back. So I basically, doing it all night, I have my whole day is free. So
you have children, correct?
I do. I have 2 teenage boys. They're both active in sports. So for a while I wasn't able to.
It's gonna pick up that.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say also, my father, so my father and grandfather were both on dialysis.
Yeah.
My father, when he was 89, actually had a successful transplant.
He was Matt's oldest transplant.
At 90.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was a patient of Matt's also.
That's awesome.
It was
awesome.
It was a kidney from a young man who unfortunately overdosed, and it was an HIV positive kidney.
Wow.
And so they wouldn't give it to just anybody. But my father was already 89 years old, so that they said by the time it becomes, but my father, John will tell you, my father survived 5 cancers, a quadruple
Wow.
He had 9 lives, but it was all completely. It consumed him to the point where if I wanted to see him when he was on dialysis, I had to go to the center and sit with him.
Yep.
He wasn't a candidate for home dialysis, but he was on the lowest dose of anti-rejection medicine possible, and and never got the hepatitis C or the HIV
Wow,
from the kidney,
that's
and lived
amazing.
to be 93 and passed away from a aorta closure.
Wow.
Instead, yeah.
That's amazing.
So where do you want to lead off with?
Okay,
You have
start
two.
with your children, their
so I have
ages,
two boys.
how it changed, how...
So I have one son who's 16. He's a sophomore in high school. He plays baseball, and my youngest son, Ryan, is 14. He is going to 8th grade, so he starts high school in the fall. He does a lot of swimming. So really, it was a tough road when I got sick. My husband took over a lot of the duties that, in the household and picking up slack with the kids. But I think the biggest thing was, I was just so sick for a long time, and the dialysis allowed me to, get back up and be able to be part of their lives and not miss all the things that I had missed. And, not being in center allowed me to have those days and times back where, I wasn't missing everything, either being in the hospital or being in an in-center facility.
Tell me about your nephrologist, Dr. Weir, how you came to Dr. Weir.
So Dr. Weir, it's funny because I used to go to Hopkins as to see my nephrologist, and my nephrologist, Dr. Watkin, moved from, after 25 years at Hopkins, moved to Maryland, so I followed her, and prior to the transplants, I followed up with her and, got diagnosed and did all the work up through University of Maryland and met Dr. Weir. And he is just absolutely the most amazing person I've ever met. He has been so integral in my care, transplant, pre-transplant, post-transplant, because I've had 2 transplants and been on dialysis twice and now on PD. And I talk to him all the time. He's very, very knowledgeable. He has over 40 some years of experience. He is he's actually who I go to for everything. So any medical issue I have, I run it through him first, and he's just very accessible, as busy as he is. He's a fantastic nephrologist, and he has really taken my case, which is very, very complicated, to many different physicians and many different levels to kind of make sure all my bases are covered with everything. And now, I'm waiting for the 3rd transplant, but he's looking out for me for the 3rd one and making sure how much preventative stuff we can do and avoid the issues that I had in the past. So he's been a huge role in my care and some of the great service that I've received at University of Maryland.
Aside from the medical aspect of Home Dialysis of America, the other staff, there's an odd guy who's one of the owners, Jonathan Hazeman, I think his name is. What's your relationship like with the other staff members?
I have to say the people at Home Dialysis of America are truly my family. They have, from the moment that I stepped foot in there, between the training and between the patients and between all the staff, truly they have made me feel like part of their family, and they're certainly part of my family. John and I have known each other for a couple of years, and he has always been there for me no matter what I needed. And it was difficult. I know both times that I had the transplant and they both failed, and he's my biggest cheerleader and was there in my corner saying, "That's so fantastic, you've gotten a transplant, I love you, I hope I never see you on this end of dialysis again." And then when it didn't turn out and I had to go back to it, like, it wasn't even a question. John was exactly where I was going to go to. He was very helpful, warm, welcoming, but also made the procedure, it wasn't painful every time I had to go back from a failed transplant. It wasn't, as much as I was going through emotionally, I didn't have to relearn everything. I mean, they just picked me up and picked me right up and brought me right back in. So it was very welcoming. It was very comfortable. It was very safe. It was very reassuring. And I have talked to many patients who have not done dialysis or who are in center, and I recommend that this is the way to go. The in-center is so impersonable. You're not able to create that bond with somebody. And I think when you are going through something like this as a patient, you need to know that the people that are with you are people that you can trust. And this is no greater. I mean, this relationship is so strong. I know that if I ended up having a third transplant and I never had to go on dialysis again, I know that these people would always be part of my family. And I know I could call any single one of them up and they would drop everything to do anything for me, and where I would do for them. So they have been not only professionally amazing, they have truly been part of my family. And I could not have endured everything that I have without them. I don't think any facility would have, put up with all of the back and forth with everything that's gone on with my case. And they picked me up and without any question and just did all the paperwork behind the scenes and I didn't have to do anything. I just had to show up, and they were fantastic.
Gonna make me cry. My last question was about if you met someone about a home modality, but you kind of answered it in
I
that,
can
right?
talk more about it.
Yeah, well, we could do that.
Okay, last question.
Yeah.
If you met someone that needed dialysis, what would you tell them? What would you tell them that
About
you feel
home
would make them choose a home modality and choose home dialysis?
So whenever I am out and about, I think people, for me, let me start back. It's interesting because when I was on dialysis and when I was in the hospital, I was by 30 years, I was the youngest person in getting dialysis. So I think a lot of people have visions of what people with dialysis, what their life is like. And I think it's gotten a bad rap. And I think it's shown a lot of people not able to move, and people that are bedridden, and people that don't really have, they're in their later years of life. They don't look happy. They don't look like they have anything fulfilling for them. I would say all of that is wrong. I think doing dialysis at home, especially with a company like Home Dialysis of America, you really end up getting your life back. And I have to say, I think having gone through everything that I've gone through, I've learned to appreciate the things in life that really matter. And for me, Home Dialysis of America has given me my life back and given me the opportunity to have those moments back in my life and be able to do all the things that I couldn't do before that I can do now. And I have spoken with people in Home Dialysis of America who are on hemo, and people that have come from in-center that would come in, and I would sit and tell them that this would be the best decision you could make. You will get your life back. And I think when they see me, they see somebody that looks pretty healthy. Like, I don't look like a dialysis patient. I don't feel like a dialysis patient. I walk around and I have the catheter attached to me, but I live a normal life. I have traveled with it. I've flown with it. It is a little bit more time consuming, but it's such a small part of my life now, where I think if I was in center, I think the environment consumes your life, and that is what you think your life is about. And for me, Home Dialysis of America has made this just a small facet of my life, and the dialysis is a smaller part of my life, and it's given me the opportunity to live my life. And I've told people they really should get out of in-center and do home dialysis. You don't realize how much better you'll feel. It's better for your body overall. The system's not as rough on your organs, and you wake up and you have energy. You feel well. I don't ever feel tired. Even when I was the most sick that I was, and I was on hemo with John, I never felt tired. I never felt sick. I know most dialysis patients say the day after they feel drained and exhausted. I have never once felt like that. Between hemodialysis and PD, I think home dialysis is definitely the way to go, and I would recommend it to anyone. It really does give you your life back.
That's actually a specific question I wanted to ask you. I know with my father,
Sure.
He would, especially, well, my grandfather especially didn't follow the diet to a T.
Sure.
But it was always something different when he finished dialysis. Sometimes he would be, like you said, just want to go to bed. My father the same way. It was always different. So my assumption, I don't know a lot about home dialysis versus in. I'm assuming that in-center tries to do it faster, but is more intense. Whereas home dialysis, like you said, you do like a midday and a night.
Yep.
So do you find that it doesn't take as much out of you?
I feel like it doesn't take as much out because truly while I'm doing the majority of the dialysis, which is not at night, I'm sleeping. So really while the machine's running, it's I'm able to get the rest that I need, and it's able to kind of clean my body and do what it needs to do. And there's no needles involved with the PD, which is fantastic. So I don't have to get, stabbed with crochet, size needles. But I think the bigger thing is that even doing hemodialysis at home and doing PD at home versus in center, I think the thing is that when you're in center, it's 6 hours. It's very stressful because you're like, an assembly line of patients. So there's, 5 or 6 patients down in one big room, and you're stuck there for 6 hours. You can't move. You have to basically sit there and you either fall asleep, you read a book, or you do something. For me, even doing hemo at home, having it in my home, I could be around my family. I could watch TV. I could, interact with other people. I could, I didn't have the constraints of being in one room in one location at a time. And even now, I do my midday drain. I either I'm working now in between those 20 minutes, or I'm watching TV, or I'm eating something, and then at night, I'm just able to get the rest that I need. But it's such a calmer environment. And I think that for in-center, you just have, other patients that might be coding, and you have other patients that are, truly screaming because they're in pain or they're having a miserable time. And when you are able to kind of isolate all the outside stress and just focus on what you're able to do, the dialysis just kind of does it itself, and you're able to kind of just not be as stressed out about what your physical body is going through, and you feel calmer, and everything it just flies by. It goes much quicker.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh,
You're a natural.
So much. Yeah.
Oh my God, my dude. You should be like.
You emailed her the questions.
I did not.
No, but it's just.
It's like you don't even need takes. I mean, like
Well,